Alrighty, hey everyone, it's Mav, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a conversation about emotions and the role that emotions play in religion. Specifically, today, I really want to talk about what it looks like to struggle with emotional health in Christianity and like what they tell you to do with it. I want to explore if the methods of dealing with religion, according to I would say evangelical Christianity. Uh, let's explore whether or not these methods of dealing with your emotions are valid, if they're useful. I'm going to be using some of my expertise as a therapist and try to and use that experience to inform this discussion as well. So this is, I do talk about some other topics like science the past couple of weeks where I don't have any real expertise, but this is an area that I do know quite a bit about that I did study in school. Um, and that is one of my the larger interests in life. I am very interested in understanding human emotion. Um, I have largely been confused by myself growing up, and as a kind of struggling younger child, um, looking into psychology and stuff helped me understand myself in a way that talking to other people around me didn't really do. So yeah, now I'm at this place where I'm really interested in emotions, and obviously I made an entire career out of it. So it must be something that's pretty it's obviously something that's important to me in my life. So as usual, I've got some notes I'm going to be reading from, and you also got some videos to watch today. you know, the usual. We should have a good time. All right, let's start exploring. Oh, actually, before I do that, um, I obviously just want to give myself a shout out. So, like, check the bottom scroll to see where you can find me. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel and put the bell notification on as well so you get notified, like, when I go live, so you can come on and ask questions live and things like that. And follow me in all the other spaces where you can find me. All right, let's get started. Okay, so when I was a Christian, I was always reminded of the joy of the Lord and how that is a cornerstone of the Christian faith. That one of the ways that you're able to identify a Christian is by their behavior. Um, and if you're familiar with the faith, you'll understand this by, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, etc. Obviously, joy being the second one would probably be pretty significant. So this is an emotion that's supposed to characterize Christians. And when I found myself being depressed as a teenager, I was confused, to say the least. When the messaging of your religion tells you that, the joy of the Lord is your strength, and that, like, those who follow the Lord are rejoicing and things like that. And maybe they will go through trials, but they will go through it in such a way that they're still reflecting the joy of the Lord. Um, but obviously, I wasn't feeling that. So I got confused and I was like, what's going on here? I wanted to understand more. Um, the thing was, I really was never taught how to actually deal with my emotions. Um, yeah, it took a lot for me to figure myself out, and obviously, like, I didn't really figure things out until I was an adult. And not saying that I have things figured out now, but I actually, like, know a little bit more about what's going on with me, and I know, I guess, how to address my mental health and how to do those things. But another thing that I think is important to mention is that Christianity is a group that is very much focused, and I would say, I don't know if prioritizes is the right word, but it's consistent that people of this faith, claim to be focused on healing, that healing is a really important part of this faith. If a person is going through difficult troubles or difficult times, they're told that being strong in the Lord is the way that they're going to get out of it. Oftentimes, when you watch uh, revivals, videos where people are kind of saying, come to Jesus. Um, excuse me. uh, when you have people saying like, how or why should you come to Jesus? A lot of the reasons are things like because you're suffering and you would like to stop suffering, and coming to Jesus is a way for you to stop suffering. I obviously don't agree with that. I think that Christians still suffer, that regardless of if you have Jesus or not, you're still going to encounter suffering. Um, so I would say, I don't think that people do it really on purpose, like to be misleading, but it does end up being a little misleading. I will say for me growing up as a teen, I felt pretty confused and frustrated. That these things weren't different than how I was being taught, especially with the way that my brain worked. I just took things really literally. I was like, if you're telling me that the joy of the Lord is going to be my strength, I'm expecting this to actually happen. And when it didn't, it was frustrating. At that point, it didn't mean that maybe it wasn't true. It just meant that, like, I don't know, God must have been kind of upset with me or something. Um, all right, so we're gonna watch a video that talks about how to change unwanted feelings. Those those yucky little bastards. Emotions are stinky and gross. And let's get rid of them. Obviously, I'm gonna be a little bit, I don't know what you call it, sassy, because I like a little bit of sass here and there. Okay, cool. So this is going to be up here. I have a little couple more introductory points that I want to make before we actually dive into the video. Um, but yeah, so like one of the other things that I think is important to understand is that when I was younger, um, I really, I, it was communicated to me that feelings like anger, sadness, grief, like they might have been okay a little bit, but they weren't really supposed to stick around for very long. So if I was scared about something, it would be like, okay, I see that I see that you're scared, but Jesus is here to protect you. All of these things. So it was kind of like, don't like stop being sad because Jesus. Like that was the reason that your emotions should be kind of better. You shouldn't be suffering because Jesus. Um, Not like here, little child. Here's actually like what emotions are. Here's like what they do in our lives. Like here's how we actually like move through our emotional state. Here's what it means biologically. It's just like, this is a bad thing. Let's give it to Jesus and he'll make it go away. And you're like, that's kind of, are you just being a little bit literal, Mav? No, I am not. This is literally the exact recipe for dealing with emotions according to this faith. So whatever was wrong with you, you just would bring it to Jesus, and then Jesus would make it better. Um, so they'll say that like, you are not designed with a spirit of fear. That spirit of fear is not of God; it is of the enemy, and the enemy meaning like Satan or something like that. If you're not familiar with this type of language. Um, but the that's also a one way to think about negative emotions. For me, I'm like, emotions are really valuable. um I would say biological processes that occur within the human body. They are like, yeah, different emotional states that we exist in. They're not a spirit of anything. That's one thing that I didn't actually get into in this video. I'm not going to get into in this video is the whole deal about like emotions. If they're really extreme enough that they're demons, I just I I didn't want to be here for too long today. Maybe another week we'll get into kind of like demons and how emotions are demons and stuff like that. Okay. There are Right. Okay. So I have Hollis saying that like there are a lot of stripes with Christians. I'm not sure that all of them prioritize the same things. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses are very different from Lutherans. I agree 100%. What I will say here is that right now I'm going to be definitely focusing on more of the negative aspects, the crappy side of things that I found. One thing that I'm not going to be focusing on is the people who are doing it right, which maybe is a little bit irresponsible of me. But what I'm trying to, I guess, teach is kind of like mainstream ideas in terms of like the mainstream Christianity in America is teaching these things. I would say that like progressive areas of churches are less common. I'm not sure, right? I don't have data to give you, but that's just, I think, the way that I am viewing the world. So that could definitely be false. Um, but yeah, I did watch one video. It was like a 3-minute video where it was a couple and they were talking about emotions and how sometimes, Christians don't really deal with emotions super well. I actually didn't watch the whole thing. But so there might be some people who are doing this the right way, who actually kind of know a little bit more about emotions and things like that. But here we go. We're going to watch this video here right now. How can you change unwanted feelings? Feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Christian advice. We've got this sped up a little bit, so hold on to your hats. Let's dig in.
And doubt. How can you stop worrying about the concerns found on this earth? Throughout the Bible, we are taught that there is a difference between objective truth and subjective experiences. Objective truth is what is true whether you believe it to be true or not. For example, you can disbelieve that the earth is round, but that does not change the fact that the earth really is round and not flat. Subjective experiences, on the other hand, are personal and are all about what we as individuals feel, think, and believe in our own perspective. You can feel like everyone dislikes you, regardless if that is true or not. That is your experience. So when you are asking, how can you change your feelings? You are really asking, how can I change my subjective experience of reality? The answer the Bible gives to this question is that your beliefs about objective truth shape your subjective experiences. What you believe shapes the way you feel. Therefore, to change unwanted feelings, you have to dwell on objective truth. When you choose to believe the truths found in God's word, this will change your feelings.
Okay, so that's one of the first things that we have here. And I think there might be a couple of other things that they're going to say, but basically, the instructions we are getting here is that, let me make sure I scroll down so you can see this. Okay, so we are sad because
subjective experiences.
Yeah, yikes. Okay, we are sad because we are dwelling on our subjective experience. And when we dwell on our subjective experience because we don't understand the big picture, we're sad and depressed. Also, I just want to quickly pause and thank you so much, and Androgynous Diary, for 1,000 subs. And also, it's great that this is happening live. I am really, really excited to be at 1,000 subscribers. I thank you all for, all the things. I'll probably do something more fancy or cute for this later. But since we're trying to get into the content, let's continue this a little bit more. But basically, right now we're getting the whole idea is that like something's wrong. That's fine. You just have to know the truth, and if you know the truth, then the truth will set you free. But in this situation, if you know the truth, it'll free you from your subjective experience, and then you'll be able to dwell on the objective truth that God is good or whatever, and God will protect you, and that will make you feel better. So there are a couple of like major issues with this idea. But let's wait until the end. Let's get through a little bit more of this content so we can kind of understand a little bit more of the ideology here, and then we'll get into all the reasons why this is a little bit
flow from what you believe about objective truth. For example, Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. When our minds, thoughts, and beliefs are transformed, we will not follow the lies of the world. 1 John 3:19-20 also states, this is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Notice it said our hearts will be at rest, which is referring to our subjective experience, when we know the truth about God. Again, it says, if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts. In other words, if you are saved by God, your feeling of being condemned does not overrule the truth that God has saved you. You are still saved by God because God is greater than your feelings. God's objective salvation through Jesus Christ is greater than your personal experience. But the amazing part to notice, however, is that when we accept this as truth and we believe that God is objectively more powerful to save us than our subjective feelings, which condemn us, this will actually change our subjective feelings too. 1 John 3:19-20 is teaching us that if you feel a way that is not true, you must believe objective truth first, and then your feelings will change the more you believe the truth.
He literally just said it. He just said it out loud. If you believe the right truths, your feelings will change. That statement is objectively false. It's literally impossible. um, I wrote up an entire analogy to help explain this, explain why this is illogical. Um, let's say, for example, that you are in a committed relationship with someone, a relationship with someone, and they run over your expensive bike that you have. It's your special bike. It was an heirloom from your grandma, whatever, irreplaceable, you know, really special, and it gets destroyed by someone who you really love, you know. So you might know the objective truth that this was an accident. You might know the objective truth that your partner loves you more than anyone in the world, that they are deeply committed to you, and they're going to be there to comfort and support you with the knowledge that your bike, this precious heirloom, right, is now destroyed. As you know, as you go through the mourning process, but this is not going to change your feelings. It doesn't matter if your partner really loves you. It doesn't matter if, for example, it doesn't matter if there's the exact same bike. There might be the objective truth that the exact same bike exists, but you're still going to be upset because it's you, because there are reasons to be upset. So this video, they're not really sharing any of that reasoning. Really isn't really giving us any way to understand, you know, like how to feel better, like what happens, I guess, in the process of dealing with your emotions. Is just kind of like your emotions would, you know, just kind of improve. I don't know. It's confusing. See, it doesn't really make any sense. Hollis, you put it right. What does my heart condemning me actually mean? What what do these things mean, right? Like, also, you know, there's a lot of times where sometimes understanding the Bible isn't that easy. And when they say listen to the words of God, sometimes there's a lot of different versions and it can get confusing. But yeah, what does it mean for our hearts to condemn us? And what does it know? Like, what does it mean that God knows? Like, there's so many questions here, not enough answers, no real understanding of what's supposed to happen. And if you were here watching or you watched my last video that I did midweek, about my, you know, really severe depression, and like the me reading out that journal entry of me just like being like, God, what the hell? Like, your people have been telling me this stuff, but it's not working out. Y'all, it's not working out here, and I'm really suffering. But yeah, and so these are the issues. And let's watch a little bit more. Maybe he will explain things a little bit better. Let's see.
Isaiah 41:10 states, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Notice that fear and feeling dismayed are subjective experiences. How does God tell us to change those feelings in Isaiah 41:10? He tells us to remember the truth. I am with you. I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you. These are objective truths. When you believe these objective truths, it will change your subjective experiences. Fear not.
Okay. Okay, so nowhere in this Bible verse does it tell you to remember. It's implied. I'm not trying to be super picky here, but I have trouble understanding things. And I know that like if someone doesn't actually explain something to me, sometimes I can have a difficulty actually processing the information. Folks are some folks are neurodivergent. We don't pick up on things like that. We sometimes like we need to actually understand like how the process actually happens for us to make sense of it. But for you to just for if I were just to read this verse, like I might understand that like maybe I'm not supposed to be scared because God is with me. But like I guess I might not understand that if I'm scared, my what I would require myself to do is just like remember that God is there for me. But whatever. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that these words fear and dismayed are kind of portrayed as like this is the bad state. We don't want to be here. We don't want to experience these feelings. It never really talks about the benefit of these emotions, why they are biologically and evolutionarily sound, why they are actually necessary for us to live a full human experience. But maybe the next verse, he'll say a little bit
Means
more.
don't feel fear. So how can you change the feeling of fear inside of yourself? Again, according to Isaiah 41:10, when you remember the objective truth that God is with you, this will then change the way you
Right?
feel. This is how the Bible tells us to change our feelings. We must always believe God's truth more than our human feelings. And when we do, our feelings will change too. So whenever
Okay.
you have a feeling that you want to change, you must combat this unwanted feeling with God's truth.
All
If you
right. So so it did not get any better. He is reiterating the statement. Um, yeah. So the other thing, I'm like, sir, have you ever had a feeling? Have you ever had a deep, painful feeling where you're like, um, because emotions feel very real, like right when you're in the middle of a panic attack. I don't need somebody telling me that this is just your subjective experience and it's not real, and just remember that just remember fear not and God is with you, right? That doesn't really make any actual sense. um and it's just so upsetting. I'm so upset, y'all. This is also, you're watching me process, so much of my emotions live because man, it just is it's so frustrating to be so confused as a teenager and be like, what's wrong with me? Like, I thought I was doing all this stuff right. I thought I was doing this Jesus stuff right. Like, what's wrong? Like, what else do I need to do to make him listen to me and free me from these feelings? Because that's what you guys are telling and communicating to us.
feel unforgiven because of your sin, even though you have confessed and repented, you can remember the objective truth of 1 John 1, verse 9. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness.
All right. So I'm not gonna torture you guys with this. Let's just skip through real quick. So, he is the feeling unforgiven, feeling unlovable. So, if you're feeling this, you gotta do this. If you're feeling that, you gotta do that. I had, and this one is funny because I was, really interested in counseling and stuff for forever. And when I think I was about to go to college or something, or yeah, I was about to go to college and I was doing like summer camps. Um, and I bought or someone bought it for me, but it was like a book of counseling, like counseling tips for the Christian. And all it was like, it'd be like anger and like would point you to verses in the Bible, which is useful for a Christian who's looking for verses, in terms of practicality, but not useful in terms of like actually giving anyone any help or support. Yeah. So, right. Yeah. So, and I like this point that there is evidence. Yeah. Objective truth is not evidence, is actually subjective, which is very true. The subjective experience of this religion and this experience, which is kind of hilarious to think of. We have some more things that we want to go over, but that's it for that video. Um, these are three of the reasons why I came up with. Uh, these are three reasons I came up with that describe why this line of thinking is probably not going to be helpful. One, giving it to God is difficult because God, in terms of like a subject, like in terms of that type of being, most likely doesn't exist, right? I understand that that's upsetting for a lot of people, but like according to what we can prove in terms of our collective, consensus reality, that kind of a God doesn't exist. I believe that no God exists, but we can argue in a different on a different day. So if this being doesn't exist, we can't give anything to him. Let me just say it was a little bit um, sad to when I like really embraced that, like, I really had been just kind of like talking to myself for years. Um, I also want to say that it's not a bad thing to talk to yourself. Like now I like own it. And when I do like kind of like I still do like prayerful type things because I think they can be cathartic. But I know that I'm not like talking to anyone. I'm just kind of like talking to the air or like my my inner self, like maybe those types of things more than anything really external. But you can't give anything, you can't give emotions to a thing that doesn't exist. Okay, that's one of the problems here. Two, just knowing and thinking about spiritual truth isn't going to change the way that you feel. Like I said about the whole experience with if your bike gets run over, it does like it just doesn't work. We're human beings. We are animals. We have feelings that we can't change because it's who we are. And that's not a problem. We just need to accept it. But it's okay that we have these intense emotions and stuff. We shouldn't be ashamed of them or embarrassed about them. They're natural and they're good. Um, And that actually brings me up to the third point is that your emotions are fucking sacred. Your emotions shouldn't be pushed away or changed. They really are here to be fully experienced and understood. Emotions are these little things that really just like they have a lot to communicate, they have a lot to share and a lot to say. And you can learn a whole bunch from your emotions if you really if you give them space to do what they do best, which is just to be, emotions. Um, and towards the end of this video, I am going to show you what it actually looks like to deal with emotions, and give you some practical examples of what I wish I would have gotten in terms of education about my emotions when I was younger. But we learn, we live and we learn. I'm an adult and I'm learning these things that I wish I would have learned when I was younger, but that's okay. Sometimes we don't get the opportunity to do those things. Um, Next, we're gonna just watch another clip of this other guy saying that similar things. And let's see. This is some guy named Vlad who's talking about you see the title, How to Biblically Control Your Emotions. It seems like it's a clip from a longer video, so he like jumps in and it sounds like he's in the middle of a sentence, but so that's why. But let's see what he has to say about emotions. Maybe we'll learn a little bit
yourself
more.
by speaking to your soul. Now, I find that in Psalm 42, verses 5 and 6, David says this: Why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you disquieted within me? Hope in God, for I shall yet praise him for the help of his countenance. Oh my God, my soul is cast down in me. I find this interesting. David, he's speaking to his soul. Now, watch this. David is not in his soul, he's speaking to his soul. I believe the moment you start strengthening yourself in the Lord, you will stop living in your soul. You will speak to your soul. So many Christians live in their soul. So many believers live in their soul instead of speaking to their soul. We have to live in the Holy Spirit and speak to our soul. To live in your soul, meaning you live in your emotions, you're living in confusion, you're living in fear. But you have to live, strengthen yourself in the Lord your God, and then speak to your soul. Don't let your soul lead your life. Don't let your soul tell you stuff. The soul is going to discourage you. It's disquieted. It's cast down. Speak to your soul like David and tell your soul, hope in God, for I shall yet praise him for the help of his countenance.
Amen. What more? What like what else would you need in life other than this? This is all you need. Because those pesky souls, oh man, those pesky souls telling us to be sad. This what? Okay. Can someone please explain to me how number one, okay, how we are supposed to speak to our soul? Like, is it like a separate entity, right? Like, let's kind of have a discussion of like what it is. I know they're not gonna do that in this video. We've had a conversation about the soul before in another video. I'm gonna have to redo that one because the sound wasn't working, but that's, I digress. But yeah, what does that mean? Also, how how does one separate from their soul and then talk to their soul? These things I don't these I don't think these things make sense. I don't understand how you would actually do any of this, and I'm confused. Like, why is the soul the part of you that's telling you all of these things? Like, why? It's your brain. Like, it's your neurochemistry that. Okay. Yeah, we understand, right? Neuroscience understands that thoughts are products of our biology, right? Our, I'm sure that they might be some type of chemical or bio electromagnetical connection going on in the brain, creating these thoughts or something like that. I don't understand it because I'm not a molecular neuroscientist, biologist, whatever. I don't understand how it works, but I know that this doesn't seem right. So yeah, I agree with you, EJ. This is terrible. No wonder why most of us leave the church and don't have confidence in ourselves. Yeah, how the hell was I supposed to know anything about like what it meant to understand? I don't know. Like when you okay, for example, if I'm a young teen hearing this, that like my okay, so it's my soul that is telling me all of this stuff. My soul sucks, like bad, really, really bad. Um, my soul is a bad place because it's giving me all of this stuff. And that's pretty confusing. Hollis makes a great point. I thought our soul was supposed to be the spark of God within you, and that this was kind of the Holy Spirit within you. That was the soul, or that was the inner spirit. And so this messaging doesn't make really any sense. I think that this messaging, it speaks to the idea that we have bad, we're inherently bad. Original sin means that we have these yucky, nasty things that live inside of us, and we were born in sin, and we need Jesus to help clear that out. And I'm assuming that this guy is talking to other Christians who should be having the Holy Spirit, and I'm confused as to why. I don't know. You have this inner part of you that's like somehow bad. I don't know, this stuff. It's fascinating. I find it fascinating and interesting. Even though I was in it, it's more interesting, from the outside looking in. That's for sure. Let's continue to see what else our friend Vlad has to say.
Psalm 42, verse 11, David says again, why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you disquieted? He's like, why are you all terrified over there? Why are you all scared over there? He says, why are you within me disquieted? He says, hope in God, for I shall yet praise him. Psalm 43, verse 5, David says, why are you cast down, O my soul? David's soul was pretty cast down. And then David says again, why are you disquieted within me? Hope in God. The same thing, for I shall yet trust in him. Then Psalm 105.
I'm starting to get a little bit upset in my body. I can feel it, because this is the key. This is spiritual bypassing. This is self gaslighting. This is saying like, you know, you're in pain, like looking at yourself saying, I can see that you're in pain. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, we should be feeling better. We should hope in God. We should trust our God and then praise God. because God is, great. And that is reason enough for us to not have feelings. I wish that I knew why David was sad, I wish that David felt like he could explore his sadness, that he could embrace his sadness, not reject a part of him that clearly needed attention. Um, and that's how I view emotions. They are aspects of ourselves that need attention. And I'm speaking figuratively because our emotions in reality are just these, like I said, these chemical reactions that are happening within our body. We feel these emotions, we have these thoughts. That's what they are in reality. But in a metaphorical sense, the way that we interact with our emotions, it feels right. It feels like these other parts of us, these wounded aspects of us that need our love and care and attention. We really should be able to give ourselves that type of support. But there really isn't a lot of places for us to learn how to do these things. And that's what leads people to say things like, you should feel better. I should. That's why I wrote in my journal, this shouldn't be how it is. I should be feeling better, but I'm not. And so I'm really upset, it's confusing. Let's see what else he has.
Verse 1, David says, bless the Lord, oh my soul. So he tells his soul what to do. He's like, okay, pity party, this self-pity party is over. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. And all that is within me, bless his name. He's like, we're going to go to worship. Soul, you're going to worship. You're going to not forget his benefits, meaning you're forgetful. You got a little amnesia. Like you forgot. God's been good to you. Do you remember when God forgave you of your iniquities? Do you remember how he healed you your diseases, how he redeemed your life from destruction? Come on, soul. He crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies. Do you know that he satisfies your mouth with good things and your youth is renewed like the eagles? So David speaks to his soul. In Psalm 105, verses 20 and 22, David says, bless the Lord, you his angels who excel in his strength, who do his word, heeding the voice of his word. Bless the Lord, all you his hosts, his minister of his, who do his pleasure. Bless the Lord, all his works in all his places.
So you can see him repeating verses. I kind of put the quotes up here. You can see he's still repeating verses, and it's pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. At the end, he gives a fourth point. I don't remember what it is, and it's not important. Here's the title. If you'd like to look up the video and find it yourself, not to like do anything mean towards the other channel or anything, but if you'd like to do your own research. But I would also agree, Vlad appears confused and does not seem to be a reliable or trustworthy leader or teacher, in my opinion. I agree. I do not want to roast this guy. So I will click away and leave those thoughts in my head. Okay, we have one more video to check out, but before that, my last note is that we hear Vlad talking about how we are led to live in our soul, but then to like speak to the soul. So it's like there's this really subtle language that is disconnecting you from yourself, saying that like there is this part of you that's bad, that's gross, that's producing all of these evil emotions and these evil thoughts and stuff like that. I need to distance myself from that. I need to distance myself from myself, essentially. So this guy, right, he's talking about the soul. He's not pausing to explain, the soul as, a metaphor for the way that we view our internal experience. He's definitely claiming that our soul is like some other type of entity that we are interacting with in some way. And those are really big claims. If you're going to make those kinds of claims, I would really appreciate seeing a little bit of evidence for you saying that we should separate from ourselves in some way. As a therapist, dissociation is a coping mechanism, that a lot of people use to help them process trauma, process distress. And it's really clear that a lot of people in religious communities and spiritual communities are being taught to dissociate as a part of traditional practice. Yeah, you just disconnect from yourself and then tell that part of you to shut up because Jesus is good. I guess that's one way to deal with your emotions. And the other thing is there's a lot of talk of you have to kind of like, reframe your mind into the image of Christ. So also you have to kind of like get rid of all of your feelings and like kind of replace them with Jesus. You know, a lot of these things, they're subtle, but they are, I would say, extremely problematic. Um, yeah, we have one more clip to watch, and this one is going to be fun, a little bit interesting. We're going to head over to youth group camp, I guess. I don't really know if this is a youth group camp. It gives me the vibes of like every, youth thing that you go to and you gather and everything's all whatever, and you know what Jesus camp is like if you've been. Okay. Give me a moment to set this up. And okay. All right, we're gonna watch a decent little chunk of this video. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we are. This is how to deal with your emotions. Doesn't give the name of this person, unfortunately. Yeah, so we don't know what this person's name is. I like to give people credit, but I don't know her name. She does. I would say this one's interesting. I would say there's some good stuff, some not so good stuff. So I think this is going to be a good one to go through. So let's understand how to deal with emotions.
Jesus knew how to process his emotions, even the painful ones. You can look at that when you see the night before Jesus died. He's in the garden and he's praying. And he is so overcome and distraught to the point that he is sweating blood because he knows exactly what is about to happen to him. That is the depth of emotion that Jesus is feeling. But what does he do with it? He doesn't take it out on other people. He doesn't shut him down. But in his emotions, feeling everything, he starts processing it and he brings it to God. He starts telling God, this is what I'm feeling. This is why. God, if there's any other way that you can make this happen, please let that happen. But he also doesn't let his emotions overcome him. He redirects them to align with God. And he says, God, but not my will, but your will be done.
Okay, interesting. So we're hearing here I'm sure that this is a different message than what we've been reading. This is probably something a little bit different. She's she's hip, she's young, she's new. I'm sure this is a hip new way to deal with emotions. But wait, it seems like we are giving it to God again. Maybe we're reminding ourselves of God's truth a little bit. Maybe she'll explain a little bit more. But I will say, I find it interesting that this story of Jesus was taken as a way that he processed his emotions. Whenever I've heard this story, it really was one of the last things I would have thought would have been that this was an example of like how you deal with emotions. This was like Jesus, like literally like freaking out about to literally be murdered, who was like, I don't know about the algorithm, unalived, whatever. And he was like, hey God, maybe we could like not do this, maybe. And like I would be sweating blood too if I was panicking about literally about to be going through a whole bunch of suffering. But yeah, I'm not sure if this is a full example of how to deal with emotions fully. And I think, Hollis, you give another good point here. We need to remember that biblical advice was written just a couple thousands of years ago for the psych mores at that time and for the organizational needs of that time. And the world has changed a lot. Great point. But too bad, because the Bible is written for right now, Hollis. Silly goose. The Bible is modern. Duh. No, but that's what you'll hear people say, that the Bible is good enough today. It is the It is the living, breathing word of God. So it doesn't matter, it's relevant. Why? I'm not sure, but it is because Jesus and because reasons, probably. Hopefully I'm not messing stuff up a little bit too much, but yeah. And I'm also curious, like, how do you guys process emotions? Like, leave a comment. What does it mean for you to process emotions? We're gonna talk about that at the end here. But yeah, this woman is kind of telling people just to talk about it, just to say stuff. You know, we hear oftentimes there's things, you know, we just 1 Peter 5:7 says, you know, cast your cares upon the Lord, for he cares for you. So it is a commandment, you know, and that I think is more straightforward to tell God about what's wrong. And it really is nice because you can sit and you can pray and you can talk to God all day long. But you know, if you do have trauma or like stuff that you actually have to like process, you might need a little bit more. You might need some therapy. But who am I? Who am I to say? I'm just a therapist. I wouldn't know.
This is why Jesus is the safest place to process our emotions, because he understands. He gets it. He knows exactly how you're feeling, and he doesn't judge you for it. You know, I think it's so interesting, the things that we won't bring to God because we're so afraid that he's not going to be able to handle everything we're feeling. But guess what? He's a big God. And not only that, he already knows. And he loves you. He even still likes you. You can bring it to him.
Okay, y'all, I found this laughable. Like, literally, I laughed out loud because literally the entire point of your religion is, oh God, okay. The entire point of your religion is the fact that sin makes us literally unpalatable to God. Our nasty, disgusting sin. The fact that like, we have sex like disgusts God so much that he can't even stand to be in the same presence of us, right? So no, God is not going to judge you. I think that's just so ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Like maybe in those moments, you know, we are told to kind of focus on the comforting aspects of God, but nowhere in this does she to remind us that, you know, literally like our sin sends us to actual hell. And that's the whole kind of point. Jesus would not have to come at all if God didn't require it. So, right? If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I would love to know. But yeah, God will literally judge you. It is literally his job. It's his favorite thing. It's his favorite part of the whole process. And it's the part that also I think Christians really like. You'll hear a lot of Christians get real excited when they feel like God is judging people. But, you know, whatever. Okay. Let's watch a little bit more. We skipped over to the section about processing. We're going to let's learn how to process emotions, okay?
You can. And so what do? How do we, when we talk about processing, like what does that even look like? Because that's like a weird word. When we talk about processing emotions, especially with God, it's just saying time out.
Time out.
What am I actually feeling?
Okay.
What is really going on? And what am I going to do about it?
Cool. This is cool. I love this. This is great advice. I'm not even being like sarcastic, okay? This is great advice. It is awesome when you're noticing something arising in your body. Pausing. Like checking in, what's going on? Like what's coming up inside of my body? You know, I would say that the what am I gonna do about it question is not necessary at first. That's the only thing that I would change about this advice. But as a therapist, A+ on that, maybe A minus because of the what am I gonna do part. I don't agree. So A- on that.
Sometimes that looks like, you know what? Processing God looks like going for a run and praying in your head. Sometimes processing maybe for you is just opening up your heart in worship and just pouring out everything that's going on. Sometimes that might look like, you know, writing everything down, writing God a letter. This is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. I'm learning this right now. I've actually just started talking out loud to God. That sounds crazy, I know. Like I will literally just stop and I will just say, God, I'm sad. What this person said really hurt me. and I will just keep talking until I get to an answer. Because the things you're feeling aren't for no reason. A lot of times your emotions.
Okay, my bad. I went too soon because that's a really important part. Okay, so I'm gonna back up so that we can watch that again. But decent advice for how to process emotions. I would agree. The worshiping part, so that means like, singing out loud and stuff. That's great. That's excellent way to kind of like even to stimulate like your vagus nerve, your central nervous system, and put you in a relaxed state. Great. Running can be great for your mental health. Even like talking, like I said, I still kind of engage in, like I said, prayerful type of activities where I'll kind of like talk and things like that to no one. But it can be cathartic to do these things. Sometimes I'll do voice recordings too if I'm trying to process some thoughts and get them out of my head or whatever. These are excellent ways to begin the process of maybe engaging with what's going on in your head a little bit more. Really, really good. And then this next part she gives another excellent piece of advice. Oopsie. Okay.
Really hurt me. And I will just keep talking until I get to an answer. Because the things you're feeling aren't for no reason. A lot of times your emotions are trying to get your attention to tell you that there is something else going on. It's kind of like the warning lights on your dashboard. Maybe for some of you, you drive and you see your dashboard, or maybe you've watched and looked at your mom driving, maybe to catch her speeding, and you've seen it. And what do these lights do? See, these lights come on when there's something not right in your car and you need to fix it. Now, here's the thing about these lights. I could ignore them. I could pretend they're not real and hope they go away, but eventually something is going to break. And how much damage there is, how much it's going to cost me, is all depending on how quickly I acknowledge that problem. And
okay, so this is also another A+ point. I would say emotions are a signal that something deeper is going on. Emotions tend to be notifiers that there's something that needs to be addressed. Even other feelings and sensations that are kind of common with, I guess, human biology, things like hunger and thirst. Those are sensations that kind of alert us that something needs to be addressed. Same with like general anxiety and like kind of off feeling discomfort. For if you're a neurodivergent person, you can get like a nervous system reaction when there's too much sensory information, right? These are different ways that our body responds when there's a lot of stuff going on and we need to address it, right? I would say that sometimes we have sensations that arise within our body that we need to deal with practically. Like I said, sometimes we need to move in a different situation. We need to like feed ourselves or whatever. Sometimes they're more emotional, emotional sensations that we need to kind of emotionally process, but it depends. But this is pretty decent advice during this part. After this, she goes into a story about how she I forget what the story was, but I wanted to skip it. Basically, she's talking about how she has like inner insecurities, and someone made a comment about her, and she was wondering why she was upset, and then she realized that she has like deeper insecurities, and that was kind of what she was pointing to. So for her being upset about that comment, it alerted to her that there was something deeper going on, and so dealing with that deeper thing, she is kind of claiming that there's something right here that what we're not dealing with. Let's check that section. That's where I want us to continue here.
But what my emotions were showing me and telling me is that I still had things that I needed God's help to deal with. So my question for you is, what are you not dealing with? Because we all have things we need to deal with. Maybe it's an insecurity that you have going on. Maybe it's hurt that someone else has done to you. Maybe it's guilt over something that you've done. Maybe it's pride that's taking up way too much space in your heart. Because here's the things that we don't deal with don't go away. We just take them into adulthood. But if you will take the time to deal with these things now, asking God and others for help, you get to leave it here. Now you might be wondering, saying to yourself, you know what, Allison, that sounds really good. But it also sounds like getting real about things I don't want to get real about. Yeah.
Okay. So she kind of just goes into, she starts, making some more like detailed things, like talking about specific stuff that's going on. So I'm here, and the reason why, if you noticed, my face my brow was starting to get furrowed, because I'm like, how? What does it mean to deal with it? To deal with these underlying things? Like, she really doesn't ever get to the point of saying like what it means to deal with these things. Well, let me not give spoilers. We'll watch one more section. Um, but yeah, like, um, okay. So basically, we can't just go to God. Like, there's more things that we actually have to do. I want to know what this actually looks like. What is God going to do with those insecurities when we say, "Hey, God, I'm feeling really anxious and insecure about X, Y, or Z." What does God do about it? I'm not really sure. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, like, if you're feeling insecure about yourself and your response is, let me go to someone else so that they can tell me that I don't need to feel insecure, I would argue that that person may not necessarily feel secure in and of themselves. They feel secure because they got permission to feel secure from somebody else. um, I as a therapist would encourage a person to get to a place where they can do that on their own, where they can start to kind of understand their inherent how they understand the meaning of worth in their own life. Like, I want them to be able to come to that realization on their own, not because a deity in the sky says that they're worth something. You actually have to do some of this work on your own. You can't just ask God to do everything for you. That's kind of it. One last section that I wanted to watch. I think let's just.
That sounds like putting in some time. Yes. That sounds like asking for help and being open to God. Yes. Because as much as you don't want to deal or get real with things that are hurtful, I believe what we want even more than that is peace. And here's what God says about peace. Jesus says this in John 14:27. Jesus says, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." You see, there are two types of peace. There's the world's peace and Jesus's peace. The world's peace says, numb it. The world's peace says, stuff it down. The world's peace says, try this, do this, look like this, be with this person, and you're gonna be okay. But we both know it's counterfeit, it's fiction, it just leaves us broken. But true peace comes from Jesus. The peace to know that you are loved. Peace to know that you can come to him with anything. The peace to know that he's gonna be with you in the storm. You see, when you have this kind of peace, things that should make you upset, moments in your life where you should be falling apart, you're not.
Okay. Guys, there's so much more than when I watched this the first time. Okay, because I wanted to mention other stuff, but this part is really important. So she says here, if you have God, right, the peace of God, when bad stuff happens and you should be devastated, you won't be, because you have the peace of God. This is exactly what the fuck I'm talking about, y'all. This is the stuff that drives people crazy. This is the stuff that people wonder, why is this so bad for me? Why is this so hard for me? God said, right? My pastor said, it's not supposed to be like this, but it is, because people lie. They don't do it on purpose, but these are lies. These are not the truth that are being shared. I'm not saying that these people are doing this on purpose, because I don't believe that that's what's happening here. But if you believe this stuff, you're believing stuff that's not true, which are lies. And she continues. She got riled up and did the whole Jesus thing, and whatever. It's just it's the whole thing. There's not really much else to show here, but it's upsetting because the world's peace says to numb it and to do this or do that, but your religion does too. Your religion says numb it, but you numb it with Jesus. Your religion says you said the world says do this and do that and be perfect or whatever. Your religion says that too. Your religion says do this, do that to be perfect in God's eyes so that you reflect him. And if you reflect him, then your life will be blank. You know what I'm saying? So I really just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Yeah, it's upsetting. And also from some of the earlier stuff, Hall was saying, I find it hysterically funny because it makes no sense. If God made me, how does he, she, it get off with punishing me for flaws that they are responsible for? And I think that makes a whole bunch of sense. I was like saying from a little bit earlier, when I was mentioning how, like, you know, we just have like these natural parts of ourselves that God actually gives us, but at the same time we're being punished for having them inherent in us. And then also, we tease kids, and it's funny, I've been talking about this like even in my practice, but childhood invisible friends are the subject of ridicule, but it's okay if it's Jesus, apparently. And the thing is, y'all, this is why we should just accept the fact that, like, we as adults, we need this type of fanciful play, you know, this magical world, right? This stuff is, I think it's good for us to have this stuff. But when we mix it up with reality, I think that's where some stuff can go wrong. When you're like, you know, Jesus is, you know, going to help me, and you're understanding that, like, Jesus is kind of like an entity of your own will and volition that you've created within your own mind. Yeah, that's a big difference between being like, okay, Jesus is actually real, and at any time he can definitely come and zap me up and take me to heaven. Yeah, that impacts the way you live life, y'all, by the way. But maybe we'll talk about that in another video. Ooh, yikes. So once again, our answer is to go to God. Okay, thanks. Really, like, it just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to go to God. I wish that, you know, one of these videos that they actually gave real information, but she just kind of rambles until she goes on to her prayer. Yeah, she did give. I would say that she did give some of the more usable advice than other people did. But we have one last video to go through today, because we're going to learn. We're going to learn from the world. We're going to learn from the world's peace. Let's see what the world's peace has to offer. Yikes. Sorry. Ooh, sorry. Oh God. Okay. I tried to, I don't know if you guys can even hear that on your end. I'm trying to get this video, the next video queued up. So I appreciate your patience with me as I try to figure this out. Still, I would say I'm still pretty new to streaming. So, you know, I appreciate your patience. Here we go. We're getting it loaded up. So we're going to learn from the world's worldly example. It's probably going to be about, you know, sin, and how, you know, doing sin is going to help you with your pain or something. And then also, I want to also make the point that, you know, this is very unhealthy behavior of religious groups, where they will do the whole us versus them thing. If you see that happening, y'all, it's not a healthy way to live life. But yeah, yeah, okay. So now we're going to now look at like I said, the world's example. Let's see if it's as, you know, scary and demonic as this woman made it seem. Hopefully not. Hopefully we won't be terrified at the deplorability. I don't know what people say. Okay. So we're going to learn about focusing. The focusing method is I guess it's a emotional processing technique. It's a body based, a somatic processing technique. It's really great. I've used similar processes, and there are a lot of other examples of things like this. This one is just one that I have learned about recently, that I think is really useful. So let's learn about focusing. This is a quick little video that gives great information. And I think, am I queued up on the thing? Yes, I am. Okay. All right, let's learn about focusing.
Very affordable little book. You can get it on Amazon or Book Depository or any even local bookstores. Focusing he describes as a natural capacity. So Jean Dillon says we can all do it. A natural capacity that connects people with their inner knowing. An inner knowing that is not yet formed into words or thoughts. So it's non-analytical. And it cannot be accessed by intellect alone. It involves dipping into the body and listening for a felt sense. It means we really feel it. If you go on to the next slide.
This is such a beautiful thing. And if you notice here, you see this here, this is what is palpably felt in the body, but is what is not yet sayable. One thing that I like to help people understand when I'm doing clinical work with them is that our bodies speak a different language. And obviously I'm using, like, this is figurative language I'm using, but our bodies don't communicate, obviously to us with words. It's through feelings, right? We know that we're hungry, not because there's an alarm in our head that says you're hungry. Maybe there's a person who has their wires in such a way that that does happen. But so far, I'm not aware of anyone who that happens for. Our body speaks to us through sensation, right? That's the language it speaks. We have to learn our body's language. With all the people that I have met yet, no two people have had similar experiences when I've helped them with different practices like this. Their experiences of sadness are so different. Someone is like, yeah, this feeling feels like a big brick in my throat, and it's like this shape. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? We can say, oh, maybe they're sad. But you don't know that. They might not even know that. Their body is processing something in a way that we can't describe with words. The body is incredible. It's beautiful. I get excited, but this process is really great. But yeah, our bodies are super wise. It's the same wisdom that teaches birds how to weave like beautiful baskets, right? And like a lot of times nobody teaches them these things. It's kind of the wisdom that we've gained from all of our ancestors that lives in our bodies. You know what I'm saying? It's like all of those things have culminated into who we are today. It's really beautiful and incredible and amazing. And when we sometimes focus on La La Land, we can miss out on understanding the incredibleness of our human bodies. Let's move on.
It means we really feel it. If you go on to the next slide. And it's a systematic, which is wonderful. A systematic, so you can do this and get the results, it's predictable, of gaining access to your body's intelligence. So we have the specific steps, and focusing works at that interface between the conscious and the unconscious. We allow the unconscious to come up into our conscious through our body experience. So it's more than being in touch with emotions and feelings. It's more than thinking, and it's more than just sensing the body. It's a felt sense of all of those things in one big whole. Okay.
Beautiful. So we are doing this incredible practice where we're not just thinking about our feelings. We're not just feeling our bodies. We're trying to like understand how our body is dealing with the situation all at once. And I think that she might say this later, but our bodies aren't really like our brains. Like they communicate with, they deal with things all the time. When you're feeling overwhelmed because you have 17 things on your mind, your body just feels overwhelmed, right? It might feel several different ways of kind of displaying that sense of overwhelm, but it's not like I feel sad because of what happened on Tuesday here, and then I feel this because of what happened today here. It's kind of like it's in the present moment. It's like right now I'm feeling all of this X, Y, and Z. And it's just our responsibility to see what's going on and ask our body, like, what is this? Is this right? But yeah.
Okay, so in the next slide, what we find is that focusing speaks to the things that we're now finding out about our body, that our body spontaneously recognizes the whole of any situation. It takes in anything in one big gulp, whereas our mind takes in certain aspects of data, our feelings take in others. And so we've been blessed with this data receiving machine that then processes inside our body. And so focusing taps into that whole mind-body experience. So for some people who have experience of mindfulness, if we go on to the next slide, I just wanted to draw a brief distinction between meditation or mindfulness and focusing. So meditation and mindfulness are profoundly healing practices, and we know that we encourage our clients to use them. The difference between focusing and mindfulness is while it can be done inwardly, sitting quietly, it's an engaged process of self-exploration. So where mindfulness might encourage us just to watch the thoughts pass by, surf the urge, let the feelings go and release them, and just noting. Focusing would encourage us to go in and sense for the more of that thing that keeps coming back.
Yeah. So focusing is an active process where a lot of times mindfulness tends to be more of a passive observation practice. I personally consider these types of practices meditative. Because, for example, people like to do, yoga as a meditative practice, or qigong, or other types of movement, artwork, spontaneous artwork as a form of meditation. I kind of equate this with those, how you're actively engaging with your brain, and you're following your brain on kind of a journey. You're like, hey, what's up? What's this? And you're like, what's going on with this feeling? And how are we going to describe this feeling, and different types of things. I think it might be beneficial for me to show you like exactly what this looks like by like doing it in front of you right now. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you what it looks like for me to kind of like feel what's going on in my body and describe it in more abstract terms, and what it looks like, instead of being like I'm sad or I'm angry. Okay, so you would just like close your eyes or just kind of get into a calm space and ask yourself like, what's going on with me? What's coming up for me? And even as I speak and as I say that, I notice movement. I immediately notice movement in my body, right? As I spoke that, I'm going to stand up and show you because I think that this is really important. So this is my cool hoodie. But as I spoke, okay, I felt the energy like move in my body like that. It started twisting and moved up my body, okay? And as I'm sitting here now, like, it's like a circular ball. It's orange, and it's resting in my like belly area. It feels a little bit uncomfortable when I focus on it and pay attention to it. I think that I said it was like a yellowish, orangish shape. It's a furry texture to it as well. And I can continue to like explore this sensation. And I oftentimes would also see like, are there any images? I would ask myself and ask my body, like, are there any images, that you want to show me, or that would help me understand where I'm at right now. In the past, I've seen like, when I did this here's a little insight into my personal life. But when I was in therapy the other day, I was dealing with some emotion and I was doing a similar practice like this. And there was like, it was an image of like me, but I was like really like I was like screaming, like an image of me screaming, right? So like sometimes our body has these ways of like showing us what we're feeling. If we're not paying attention to the abstract ways that it can be displaying to us, we might not understand the full experience. Sometimes this stuff doesn't come out when you're just journaling about your feelings, because when you're journaling, you may not be connecting to the emotions. You can do both at the same time, right? You can do this type of focusing process while being deeply connected with your emotions as well. And I see someone asking for a connection to that. I will definitely, or a link to this video, I will definitely, after this video is over, I'll link all the videos that I put. I'll link all the videos that I showed here. But just in case you want to see this real quick, this is I hope that you can see the title. I think it just says, "What is Focusing?" by the Psychology, I think it's Psychology Webinar, the Psychology Webinar group. But yeah, I'm trying to see, there's this other, Eugene T. Gendlin. This guy, I believe, is the guy who invented the process. So I hope that can help with those of you who are trying to do some research right now. But I will link those things in the video after I'm done here with this live stream. But yeah, focusing is such a great tool. And like I said, you don't have to do this particular method. Like when I just do these things, I often will just kind of just let my body kind of take me on a journey on like wherever it wants to go. Sometimes you'll notice that these like shapes and stuff that come up in your body also are connected to memories. It doesn't happen every time, but sometimes memories like will come up also. And I will personally use those as opportunities to connect with like younger parts of me in an imaginative, meditative sense. If any of you have done guided meditations where maybe you do a guided meditation to comfort your inner child, if you want to try one of those, just literally Google inner child guided meditation, and you can try something like this. And I would say doing those things might help you learn how to interact with those parts of you. And as I said earlier, we can create a bazillion different parts of us, right? We can create parts of us that represent us, as people. We can also create entities and aspects that represent God or deities, right? We have a lot of power to use our inner visual land to do tons of amazing things and understand our inner world. But we just need to learn how to use these tools, right? We need to know that these things are possible, right? I want to communicate that our biology, the way that we have evolved, allows us to have this incredible capacity for imagination, this incredible capacity for emotion. So these aspects of us are super, super important, y'all. This is amazing stuff, right? For me, this is what I learned when I started to learn about like the importance of feeling your emotions, like actually feeling the sensations associated with your emotions. It changed my life. And I don't say that I don't say that lightly. I mean that literally. It changed my life forever. And that was something that I didn't, like it kind of blew over my head. Even in grad school, I found that more intuitive and spiritual practices tend to have a lot of similar tools like this one, where you're kind of exploring your sensory experience and very intuitive types of way of connecting with your inner world. And those are very, very useful, I think, for me, at least in my process of starting to understand the way my inner world works. And so this is where the work happens. You can talk to yourself all day. You can talk to God. You can talk to whoever. You can journal. You can worship. You can do, we can even, like we didn't talk about unhealthy coping mechanisms in this video. There are unhealthy coping mechanisms that people use. So when that person said, she was like, people, they might numb it or whatever. You're right. People do that with their emotions, but it's not exclusive to the world. You religious and spiritual folk do it just as well. Just because you say something like these senses are really low vibrational, and I can see that they're keeping me from my highest 5D potential. That's the same thing, by the way. So just in case you thought you were safe, no one is safe. But yeah, if you're not feeling your emotions, you're missing a massive and probably the most important part, the main part of emotions, right? The mental part is an aspect of it, but emotions are emotions because of the sensations that come with it. Yeah, this is important, and yeah, let me see if anyone else has any other questions or comments. I'm, like I said, I know some stuff about brain stuff and therapy and all that stuff. So if you have questions about what it looks like processing emotions or any of your other experiences with processing emotions and stuff like that, I'm here for that. And I do want to make another comment on another comment that I received earlier from Hollis, saying that the main issue with all of this is the submission of your individual discernment to some or any human determined set of rules. A lot of this confusion could be obviated by thinking for one's self. Critical thinking, my friends. This is why we need to learn how to think. I did not know how to think growing up. I still am trying to figure out how to think well. I'm saying I will honestly say that I feel like I'm a beginner in critical thinking. I've just learned the tools, and I'm just trying to begin to put them into practice and things like that. But yeah, but it's. I forgot where I tried to play it off. I tried to play off that I didn't just forget my train of thought mid-sentence, but I did. And oh, we were talking about critical thinking. Yeah. And yeah, when we don't think for ourselves, we put ourselves in the line for a lot of trouble, a lot of heartbreak and pain. And obviously I know from experience that, what it feels like to relinquish all of your power to another group. It's a big deal. And I also want to say relinquishing your power to I don't know, this is my opinion, right? All these things are my opinion. But for me, right, in my experience, even like handing over all of my autonomy to like a spiritual being or entity or power or something like that was something that I needed to let go of entirely for some of the parts of myself that I needed to connect with to show up, I guess is the way that I'll say that. When I lost all my higher power stuff, I had a lot of emotional stuff to process, because you feel really exposed and unsafe and unprotected in a situation like that. But that's just my own personal experience. Yeah, and it's yeah, and then Hollis also mentioned that it's hard for the structure of current society not allowing for managing unpleasant emotions. You're correct. And so I will say that the woman is right. Like when you look out into the world and you see people really suffering, you can tell that something's wrong, and something is wrong. It's just that like she thinks that she has the answers and she still doesn't. You're just going to put people in a dissociative state, and disconnect from their bodies and obsess over rules and stuff like that. That's what Christianity did for me. I won't say that it does that for all people, but that's what it did for me. Yeah, I'm over it. But yeah, if I appreciate you all hanging out with me today. And we're probably going to wrap this up. I want to remind you all to like and subscribe to the channel, put the bell notifications on so that you're aware of whenever I make new videos. Also, make sure that you follow me on Instagram. That is the space where I, at least recently, have been spending a lot of my time and at least posting there more most days onto my story. So if you're interested in kind of keeping up with me, that's where you'll find me. If you learned anything from this, definitely like and share and subscribe. And also, if you want to support the channel, you can go ahead and buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/madmagic. And definitely, I'm here for, you know, if you guys have other suggestions for things. I just had someone give me a really great suggestion for a video on Instagram today that I'm probably going to do next week. So I'm open to suggestions and stuff. I want to connect with you all. All right, everyone. It was a pleasure to hang out with you today. Peace and love. I will see you next time.